got a job at a chocolate factory. In fact, he runs it, but the mission of the chocolate factory is to make the world a better place. Joe Whinney of Theo Chocolates. Welcome, Joe.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So is that right? Your mission is to make the world a better place?
Absolutely.
Don't you make the world a better place just by having chocolate?
Not always. You know, chocolate is something that, we celebrate with, we give to people who we love, but the legacy of the industry is really awful and oppressive, and we're trying to change that around a little bit.
What do you mean by that? The legacy of the industry is awful and oppressive.
When you buy a chocolate bar, let's say you buy a conventional chocolate bar that costs 99 cents, the costs for that are externalized. And what that means is that farmers and their families are impoverished. 80% of children of cocoa farming families around the world are undernourished. There are problems with slavery and forced labor in West Africa. Most cocoa farmers earn less than $1 a day for their entire family. That is not a healthy industry, in my opinion.
Wow, how did it get that way?
Cheap food. When you think about the legacy of cocoa, it was first domesticated by the Mayans almost 2,000 years ago, and it was used as a sacrament. It was sacred to them. It was used in their religious exercises and as currency, and royalty valued it so much that they would have huge stockpiles of it. Today, certainly since the Industrial Revolution, we've completely devalued it. Now it's a brown, cheap, sweet commodity that we expect to pay pennies for, and that doesn't lead to healthier lives for farmers who grow the ingredients.
We're going to have the Theo website up throughout the show often for people who have questions, but I'm just going to ask you right off the bat, what's different about you?
We work directly with cocoa farmers to help them improve quality so that they can produce a crop that we can make great chocolate with. We ask consumers to pay 2 or 3 times the price for a chocolate bar that we sell compared to conventional chocolate. But because we work directly with farmers and are buying directly from farmers, we're able to give the price back to them in the form of a much higher premium on their crop. But it only can have real value if it tastes better. So that's where our technological support in the field comes in, so that they produce a higher quality product that allows us to sell it for more.
Well, you're a business, so forgive me for asking this, but is it successful?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we've been growing the last few years 40% year over year. We're profitable, and we're continuing to expand. We're in more than 4,000 retailers across the country, all 50 states, and just moved into Canada.
Let's talk about some of the countries where you work. And I'm not talking about sell, I'm talking about buy.
Yeah.
One of them is, and we were talking about this before the show, is the Democratic Republic of Congo, one of the most dangerous places on earth.
Yes.
Why would you ever work there?
Because the need is so great. When you look at what's happened in Eastern Congo over the last 15 to 20 years, it's the site of the worst humanitarian tragedy since World War II. More than 5 million people killed because of war and disease, thousands of women raped every year, men and boys also. It's tragic what's been going on. Part of the issue is that there is no real economy for most of the people living there. Pure subsistence is what they have to experience. And so if we can provide a market and the technology for them to access that market in a way that they have hope for the future, that starts to change the cycle of degradation. It also helps to establish some political will for those farmers so that they can start to have more of a voice within their country.
Joe, you're a business, and as a business person you are helping the lives of so many of your employees and their families. Why do you care about the Congolese?
Because we need a good base of cocoa to produce a product that we sell. And I started Theo not because I just wanted to make money. You need to make money in order to survive. But I want to make a difference. And I can't imagine a better place where we could have a stronger impact than Eastern Congo. And the other part about this, it was completely unexpected. I went there for the first time 2.5 years ago. And I brought back samples of cocoa from some of the farmers there, who, by the way, are so aggressive and so committed to creating change for themselves and their families. I brought back a sample of the cocoa and thinking, okay, well, this would be an interesting place for us to work. It's very challenging. But we took the cocoa, made some chocolate in the lab, and the chocolate tasted the way brownies smell in the oven. So I knew that we had a hit. I knew that the quality is incredible. It could be a lot better. We could make great product and have a huge impact in a part of the world that desperately needs it. The other part that was important for me in Congo is that very few businesses are willing to take the kinds of risks that Theo is. And we took a risk there to demonstrate that you can be successful there, you can have an impact with farmers, and you can be a profitable business at the same time.
How can you do business in a country with no economy and minimal government?
By working directly with the farmers and the exporters who are buying from them. And so it's a very direct relationship that we have. They're able to produce a crop, sell it at a better price. We reinvest money in the region through improved quality, and we're establishing an economy that's actually outside of government impact. There is really no functional government in that part of the country.
So how can you do business, or how can you protect the business that you have?
It's through building relationships, and so there are issues with security because of the militias and rebel groups in the region. There are issues with infrastructure because of the lack of government. The roads often are in a horrible condition. So what we do is make sure that we operate in a way and that the farmers are working in a way where they're not subject to the challenges that the militias provide, and some of the money that they're making is being reinvested in the infrastructure so that they can get their crop to market. And so it's a very grassroots approach, but we also have a partner in the region, Eastern Congo Initiative. And ECI is working with the communities that we're buying cocoa from to also make sure that their health and welfare is increasing as their economy is being built.
What percentage, if you know, of the people in the Congo actually subsist off of agriculture?
Well, there's approximately 70 million people in the country. I think I'm pretty sure I have that number right, and the vast majority are subsistence farmers. There's very few that are actually living in towns or cities, and the agricultural capacity there is completely untapped. The Congo, and this is one of the fascinating facts about the country, is that the natural resources there are unlike anything else. The second largest rainforest in the world after the Amazon. It's the only country on the planet that every single element in the periodic chart can be found there, which is one of the reasons why they're challenged because of the mining trade. But if that can be harnessed and the farmers and the people there can establish political will and have a functional government, the potential for the Congo not only changing Central Africa but the entire continent is huge. So being a part of that at the beginning is exciting for us.
The cocoa industry worldwide is known, and as you touched on earlier, for child labor, essentially slave labor as well.
Yeah.
If you're going in and changing that, doesn't that put you at risk too?
In what way?
Risk if somebody's profiting off of child labor and slave labor.
Right.
And if you're going in and changing the lives of the people who are profiting off of that.
There are definitely special interests in this country as well as Africa who don't like what I have to say about these issues, but they know that their opinions and their entrenched position in the supply chain is fading because consumers are caring about this. The brighter light is being shown on this particular issue, and eventually I think that we're in the right. I feel personally that our risk is minimal as long as consumers are behind us.
But every country that you work in does not have the dangers of the Congo. In fact, let's hope that no other country has those dangers. But you do work in countries where the economies are dollar-a-day people. What are some of those countries, and how does it work there in comparison to some of the other countries?
Well, so I started out my career as a conservation volunteer in Central America more than 20 years ago. And over the 20 years that I've been in the cocoa industry, I pioneered the first organic cocoa and chocolate products in this country in 1994. And since then, I've seen tremendous growth, especially in Latin America. Many countries in Latin America that I've worked with over the last 20 years, I've seen tremendous stability coming into those countries, both politically and economically, and the two have to go hand in hand. So one example is Peru. One of my first trips to Peru in the early 90s, I was in the Central Valley, which is on the Amazon side of the Andes, and there was real threat from the shining path. And my visit to that region was challenging because of that particular threat. In that valley, farmers were able to come together, most of the people there were farmers, come together to establish a communication network so that they could try to thwart the Shining Path's effort in that region. Once the Shining Path were removed substantially from that valley, the farmers had a network that they were able to use to market their crops. And that shift had a huge impact on their lives. So today, farmers, cocoa farmers that we're buying from in Peru are having strong, healthy lives. Their children are doing well in school, and they're investing in their landscapes so that they not only have a sustainable financial future, but they have a sustainable environmental future as well.
Wow. So you're then pretty popular, aren't you?
Well, I'd like to think that we are considered the preferred buyer when we go into certain communities. We usually pay a higher price than anyone else, but we're very demanding. We demand quality, we demand transparency, and we also demand that the producers partner with us to improve their landscape for a sustainable future.
You say you demand quality and transparency, and I want to focus in on transparency. What does that mean?
So transparency means that we know exactly what every farmer is being paid for their crop, and that the farmers know what we're paying as well. So oftentimes farmers are organized either in a cooperative and they sell to a co-op that then Theo buys from, or they sell directly to an exporter. Regardless of what that business model is, and that business model is important for us to have a exporting partner, we need to know that what we're paying is having an impact, a financial impact for the farmers on the ground, and that's critical. We're a certified fair trade company, but fair trade doesn't mean that farmers get paid more. What fair trade means is that their children have access to education, that there's no forced or illegal forms of labor, and that there's a small premium that is paid that goes for community benefits, health care, credit programs, etc. But we want to have a much larger impact. So the only way for us to know that is happening is transparency. But now we're taking that transparency all the way to the consumer level. It's buried in our website a little bit, but we actually have the prices that we pay for cocoa based on quality published, so that anyone can go find it. And we're increasing our transparency program to consumers so that everyone understands what our model is. To that end, we're also, our employee handbook is online so that you can see what our understanding is with our employees. We're a private company. We don't have to do that, but we want people to know that we stand behind the promises we make.
The words fair trade and organic are on your website a lot. What is, you've talked about fair trade. Now, what does organic mean to you and to your farmers?
Yeah, so the reason that we have third-party verification of both the social and environmental specifications, so to speak, is so that consumers know that there's a third party that's looking over our shoulder to make sure that we're doing things at a base level that is not harming the planet and that's good for the people. In the case of organic, organic is a certification system that ensures that the way the product is grown and handled and processed is done in a way that is not harmful to the planet. What that means for many of our farmers is that they're growing cocoa the way that they have been for years anyway. The sad truth for many cocoa farmers is that they can't afford chemical inputs. They can't afford pesticides or fungicides. So they have to learn how to produce their crop, increase their yields while doing it organically, which is a big role that we play in our relationship with the farmers.
Your website is really, really interesting. And I got to read from it. It says, "For us, chocolate isn't just a product, it's a journey from bean to bar. And while its heart is with the beans themselves and the places where they're grown, lovingly referred to as our origin, what we do with those beans is just as important." It sounds like you know your farmers.
In many cases, yeah, we visit the farming regions and the producers regularly. I've been focused so much over the last 2.5 years on Congo. I've been there 8 or 9 times and have spent so much time building that supply chain. It's a personal passion of mine, and in doing that, you build relationships with people. And from a business standpoint, you know, some people say, well, it's not personal, it's just business, right? You might have heard that. I believe that all business is personal. It's about relationships, and it's about trust. And the only way for us to really have trust is to have direct relationships with producers and the people that the exporters and the co-ops that they work with. And so we also have other groups of people that are Theo employees who travel to origin as well to build those relationships.
How do you determine whether to go to the Congo or Ecuador or Peru or the Dominican Republic? I think those are at least 4 of the countries that you're sourced from. How do you choose those source countries?
Well, there's a few different angles. One is quality is critical. Without good quality, nothing matters, because you or our consumers won't buy the chocolate bar if it doesn't taste good. So we look for particular flavor attributes, but then we also look at what the potential is for us to have a positive impact or to sort of help support the positive direction the farming community might already be headed in. And so in the case of Peru, this particular farmer group has been producing coffee and now cocoa, and they've had a lot of success, and there the quality allows us to have, let me say this a different way. The Peruvian cocoa has a fruity, almost wine flavor to it, which when you pair it with more of a nutty or a cocoa-y cocoa bean from Congo, for example, you have this complex product that is absolutely delicious. The quality is what attracted us to that region. But then once we learned more about the people there, we knew that we could support the work that they're doing in a way that was really unique. So it's a combination of quality and mission that we look at when we choose an origin.
With regard to Congo, we've talked about that they really don't have much of a government, but Ecuador, Peru, Dominican Republic, that they do.
Yeah.
How do you work with the local governments, or do you have to?
There's really very little interaction that we have with the local governments. We're more interested in, from a political standpoint, how stable a region is, and the politics are a key driver. And so stability is what we're looking for ideally, or at least understanding what our risk is.
Except in the Congo.
Well, but there we went in knowing what our risk was, because we knew how unstable it was, and which means that we'll make certain decisions. In the case of Peru, right now it's a very stable government, and especially in the rural communities. But we have very little interaction. The biggest challenge that we have often is security. Ecuador is challenging because the security there on some of the trucking routes between the farmer regions and the port, it's very unstable. And so having that understanding and that knowledge and realizing that there's very little political will right now to change that means that we have different insurance risks or personal risks that we have to be aware of when we're shipping cocoa there.
You have some interesting partners. You talked a little bit about the Eastern Congo Initiative, but 2 of them that jump out at me are the Jane Goodall Institute, which I would not have associated with chocolate, and World Bicycle Relief. I would not have associated that with chocolate either. So tell us about those partnerships.
So Jane Goodall, I've been a huge fan of Jane's for a long time, and the work that she does is global. She has a global presence, and she's so focused on habitat conservation, which I think is critical and core to our mission. And my initial move into the cocoa industry was to help use cocoa as a crop to improve reforestation, because cocoa by biological design is an understory crop in the rainforest. And so when I first
it's a what?
Understory crop in the rainforest.
What does that mean?
So that means that if you look at the rainforest, which is very biodiverse and has a lot of vertical diversity, it needs to have a lot of different types of trees at different levels in order to be healthy. Well, cocoa likes shade, so it's a smaller tree under the higher canopy of the rainforest. So the belief is, and what we've seen in other parts of Central America, is that you can produce cocoa while planting other economic hardwood canopy trees that can be harvested sustainably in the future. Cocoa is a great crop to be a part of a diversified landscape. So imagine a place like Ghana where it has been so deforested. There might be incentives to use cocoa as a way to help reforest a region. Jane understands that. She was interested in having new ways of telling her story.
And now she's got her own chocolate bar.
And now she has a chocolate bar, and some of the proceeds from that chocolate bar go back to support her work. It was a great fit. World Bicycle Relief, if anyone who's spent time in sub-Saharan Africa understand how important bicycles are. And one of the biggest challenges is that bicycles are used as the family car, they're used as the business truck. So many goods are transported on bicycles, but there's very few bicycles that are there that can stand up to the dusty roads and the hard work that they're asked for. The World Bicycle Relief has created a model where they not only provide bicycles, but the bicycles are provided as an incentive for education. So if for a kid to get a bicycle, you have to stay in school. You use that to get to school, which is one of the limitations. But you have to stay in school and do well in order to keep the bicycle. Once you have a bike, though, there's a need for repairs and parts. And so World Bicycle Relief provides the tools and the training to establish mechanics, which is now a new part of the economy for those regions to support the bicycles. And we think that that's great. A lot of cocoa in Africa is transported from the farm to market on bicycles. And so for us, it was an easy fit.
Well, so then this is a natural segue into this next word that's on your website quite a lot, sustainability.
Yeah.
That's such a buzzword, and it's overused and in many circles, but it means something specific to you, doesn't it?
Well, it does, and I agree. I think that the word is, it's not the best word, and it's hard to find vocabulary to really talk about the challenges and the nuances that is sort of in that bucket of sustainability. Sometimes we just think responsible is a better word. But in our case, sustainability means that today we are meeting our needs without jeopardizing future generations' ability to meet their needs. So that's very, very basic. But what it also means in regions like the DRC or Peru is that you're not just treading water in a state that is not necessarily healthy for you, but you're improving your lives so that your life can be better tomorrow than it is today, and that there is positive growth that is part of really being sustainable. So if you find a new word or a better word, will you please let us know?
Well, I know that there are people smarter than me that are out there trying to do that. But is the farmer in Congo or in Peru thinking about sustainability?
Every single day, because if you're just focused on meeting your needs every day and not thinking about tomorrow, you're living with a certain amount of stress. And the number of farmers that I've talked to directly who are exhausted and tense by just trying to get through this day, worrying about their children and their family, making decisions that are incredibly hard. If you think about what it's like to have to choose between feeding your kids or them going to school or even just taking care of yourself, I mean, that's an incredibly difficult decision, and many farmers are faced with that every single day. They dream about having a time in their life where they can know that their kids are healthy and know that their life is going to be better tomorrow than it is today. And so it's on their mind constantly. Would they say we're worried about sustainability? No, they'd say that we're worried about having a better life.
If someone were to call you, well, let me ask it this way. Is chocolate your business?
Yes.
If someone were to call you from the coffee business or from some other crop, pineapples, and say, come and apply the Theo Chocolate business model, would you say yes?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, let me based on your look, I'm going to qualify that answer, is that what we want to do is share the things that we've done as a business that would hopefully allow any business to sort of follow the path that we've carved out. And I'm not a pineapple expert, I'm not a coffee expert, I would never pretend to be one. But there are certain core decisions and processes in building a business like Theo that you can apply to just about any business. And that's something that I'm regularly asked to share stories about that, and I do willingly. I also want to say that we haven't figured everything out. You know, we have, I've made so many mistakes. The list is much longer than the successes. Some of those mistakes have value, but I still feel like we have a lot to learn.
Okay, so you opened up the door there. So
yeah,
tell us about some of the mistakes.
I'll tell you a story about my first cocoa adventure. I mentioned earlier that I got into the cocoa business as a conservation volunteer. I saw that social and environmental problems were really business issues. And so I thought, well, organic cocoa could help save the world because it was a premium crop and organic consumers would value the social and environmental benefits that I was hoping to provide. I built a business in the 90s that was focused on supplying bulk chocolate and cocoa products to food manufacturers in North America and then Europe, and the business grew incredibly fast. The biggest challenge I had was meeting raw material supply, and so I spent a lot of effort in building that supply in Africa and Latin America, but never made a profit. And that was fine until 2000, 2001, when the market dropped out, financing dried up, and I realized that I actually didn't have a financially sustainable business. I was so focused on the mission and so committed to the mission part that I didn't really pay attention to, in the way that I should have, to the financial stability of the business. That was a huge lesson that I learned, and I've certainly been applying that to Theo.
Well, okay, so we got to be fair here. We said, okay, what's one of the lack of success? Now, what's one or two of the successes in your own mind?
Well, I think the greatest success that I've had is being able to hire and work with incredibly smart and talented people.
As we said really early in the show, your mission is to make the world a better place. If we're looking 5 years down the road, what is something else that you think that Theo would do to make the world a better place?
That's a big question. We're hoping to be a very, very successful company all the way through. We would like people to choose Theo over other conventional brands. But more importantly to me, I would like to see us influence the way that other brands do business. And I believe the multiplying effect of our model and our work has to do with changing other business leaders and consumers. At the end of the day, what we're a part of is a consumer movement. Consumers are the ones who are creating change. So if consumers have education and good access to information and understand and can choose a product that they love and that is reasonably affordable but really has integrity in how it's produced and made, and they choose that every time, that's where the change really comes from. So the more consumers we can impact, the more businesses we can impact, the more I think we're being successful.
Joe Whinney, Theo Chocolate, thank you very much for being with us. And be sure to go to the website and you're going to learn an awful lot more. And maybe, just maybe, it's going to be more of a business model outside of chocolate too. Take care.